remember the date when you arrived in Hawaii with your P-36s?
Yes, I do. It was in February 1941.
So you were there before Pearl Harbor.
Yes, about 10 months before.
What was Hawaii like then?
What?
What was Hawaii like for you? You'd never been there before.
No, but we was at Wheelerfield, and I wound up moving off the base with 3 or 4 other pilots. We lived down in a big mansion on the north side of Pearl Harbor called Pearl City. And I was one of the yardbirds of that group, the youngest in rank. And we lived there until a week before Pearl Harbor. And a week before Pearl Harbor, we got orders to move back onto the base. We lived in the officers' club with other lieutenants. I lived with a kid by the name of Thordelson in the officers' club, which had rooms around the pool, around the club. And as a matter of fact, when Saturday came, December the 6th, we called off the alert. We flew every morning, right at daylight, when we was on that alert. And we had bunkers around and dispersed our airplanes. But then on Saturday, we called off the alert and moved all of our airplanes back wingtip to wingtip next to the hangars. And
why were you on alert?
Because they knew we was going to have some trouble with Japan, they thought. Admiral Kimmel and Commander Short were the 2 ranking admirals and generals, and they put us on the alert. And the Japanese had an envoy in Washington. It was all planned. Japanese leave Japan and come and bomb Pearl Harbor, because they wanted to take all the islands in the South Pacific, and they wanted to destroy our fleet. And for some reason or other, we suspected something, and that's why we were on the alert.
But why did you go off the alert on Saturday?
Well, they just called it off. It happened to be a weekend. We'd been on it for a week, and they called it off. We had a dance that night, and afterwards we had a little poker game. I happened to be one of those guys, and I joined up with that, and I went to bed about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Did you win at poker that night?
Well, I normally won. When I got in my bed, I went to sleep, and early the next morning when the Japanese attacked, Thordelson, who was in the bedroom, he come running around and shook me and said, "Cyclone, the Japanese are here. The Japs are here." And I was right by a window. I pulled up and looked out the window and saw a Japanese dive bomber going down to bomb the flight line. So I jumped out of bed and put on my coveralls and raced out into the club there. And there was a lieutenant there named Stewart. He said, "Come on, Cyclone, let's go." And we went on and jumped in his convertible and drove to the flight line. While we were driving to the flight line, a Japanese tried to strafe us, but he was already too far past us and hit the road. And we parked in a ballpark and run to the hangar, and I saw an airplane trying to strafe us then. And they had the front line of the P-40s all on fire. The wind over there normally is from the east to the west. And on the east end of the parking rampway, those airplanes were on fire. So I raced out and started getting airplanes out of the fire. The 3rd airplane I got out of the fire, Thordelson had come down, and he was the armament officer. He said, "Cyclone, you don't have any guns." But I took it out to the dispersal area. Looked like the attack was over. And then I run to my car and got in my car and went down the flight line and got me a armament man, and we took the fire axe and broke down the armament door, got out 6 machine guns, put them in my car with Cosmoline and all, and drove out to where I'd parked this airplane in a bunker and started putting the guns in it. And before we'd finished, a Japanese dive bomber came across the field like he was going to strafe us, but we run up against the side of the bunker, and I didn't see any bullets, but the rear gunner in it was sitting backwards, and I could see him grinning at as he went over about 20 feet over. So anyway, we finished putting the guns in and loaded the ammunition in, and I just took off from that bunker downwind to the west. When I pulled up, there's the mountains there, and I checked to see if my guns would go off, and one of the miracles of the war, all 6 guns went fired. And we had a controller at a little base down near Hickam, and I called the controller and told him I was airborne with 1 P-40. And he asked me to go to Barber's Point, which is west of Pearl Harbor. He said they had heard an invasion. So I flew down there, and we had an anti-aircraft unit there, but wasn't any invasion. I reported that back to them, and I turned and went back, flew back by Eva, and there's still no Japanese. I guess they'd all gone.
Were there any other American planes
Not
in
yet,
the air?
but I intercepted 3 others that had taken off. So I joined them, and that made 4 airplanes. So then I told the controller I had 4 airplanes. What do you want me to do? And he said, would you escort some B-18s out of Hickam to see if you can find the fleet? So I started over Pearl Harbor, and every gun that wasn't available started shooting at us. We had these bombs going off our wings, and so I pulled back off and then into the clouds and told them if they wanted an escort at Pearl Harbor, Hickam, well, they'd have to get the Navy under control. So we wound up going back to Wheeler and Landon, and we never saw any airplanes, but people that got after I did went to Bellows Field on the east side of the island, and they did run into the tail end of the Japanese. And we had another airfield at Haleiwa on the north end of Oahu, and that was a gunnery camp. And George Welch and Kenny Taylor and some other pilots were stationed there, but they were at the club with me. They jumped in their car and drove to Haleiwa when I went to the flight line. And George Welch got credit for 4 airplanes shot down, and Kenny Taylor got credit for 2. If I'd have gone with them, why, it might have been a different story for me.